Hi. Well, I don't know what just happened to my um, Wi-Fi, but I'm trying something else. So we'll see how this goes. I'm sitting here. I've moved, and let's see if anybody has been able to get this. So I was talking about dysfunctional characters, and what makes a character dysfunctional, what makes a character have those, all those little kinks in their personality that makes for an interesting character, um, in a variety of different ways. So I'm happy to take, your insights, questions, etc. I am having phone problems today, but seeing if I can make this work. So, I'm going to find somewhere to prop this up. This will work. Okay, how's that? It's going to fall over. Writing Wednesday is DIY at all times. So, yeah, let me know if you have favorite dysfunctional characters. I'm trying to think of some. I was just talking about Faulkner, how Faulkner, there is not a. I think there's like maybe Caddy, who is able to get away from the family in Sartoris. She runs away, but she sends her daughter back into the family to be emotionally abused by Jason, who is a tormented and a real jerk, tormented individual. I'd say that usually when we think of a dysfunctional family, there's usually an individual who is really labyrinthine, sometimes alcoholic. There's a lot of people in Carver like that. And they, by virtue of their anger, their drug-addicted disabilities, they create a family that has to react to that kind of hostility, refusal, positively harmful personality. And then they develop more labyrinthine responses. So nothing in a family like that can be straightforward. You read Lydia Yuknovich's The Chronology of Water, which is a memoir, and you see how the family kind of moves around and absorbs and reacts and shapes itself to a strong individual father who is both interesting and labyrinthine and violent, and has all kinds of ways in which his trauma expresses itself. So much of literature is made up of characters like this because it's interesting. If your fiction is about conflict, then you have individuals who are unhappy for a number of reasons, expressing it in that kind of tormented way where information doesn't flow easily, where affection doesn't flow easily, all the things that happen in a happy family or with happy people. You get this strange, somebody has to run the obstacle course every time to get energy out into the world, and then for anything to come in, it takes these odd, often harmful routes in. So what else can what do you want to talk about characters? I'm completely open. I finally got some sort of a signal. Yay. It's, it's a pandemic. We're lucky to have a signal and breakfast and coffee and so forth. So so characters who do things badly can be innocents. They can be careless. They can be. So I wouldn't say that dysfunction is doing things badly. Allison, the original question. I would disagree with that. In fact, I think that dysfunction has is a psychological term for a psychological state, or many psychological states, where things don't move in a straightforward way. There's always a twist. There's always an agenda. There's always these often unwholesome, certainly ungrateful, although, there can be dysfunction of somebody who's extremely grateful and religious, and they see everything in terms of some sort of unseen hand, or there's all kinds of things like that. So here's Karen. Thanks for the question. How do you write a memoir about your life and don't want to write about that person with a bad taste? Yeah. The problem with memoir is that there were people in your life who were harmful, destructive, squirrely. The mechanics just weren't functioning very well. And you have to write about them. That's why I write fiction. But Annie Lamott always says that if they wanted you not to write about them, they would have treated you better. So, memoir is very bold. I mean, I have my hats off to people who will write memoir and name people and talk about what they did. You have to read, if you're more afraid of what they will say than you are aligned to the truth of your own story, you're already in trouble. If you're a memoirist, memoir requires a lot more of a thick skin about what people will think. If you don't want to write about that person and tell the truth, you can be kind. You can, if you want to pull back and go, I know why that person is the way they are, and this is why, that develops sympathy for them, even though they were like, hitting you with the cord of the electric iron, but why they are like that. That might help you write it. But read Lydia Yuknovich, read The Chronology of Water. I mean, you're going to see some daring when you look at memoirs like that. So Karen says, I'm in the midst of writing and coming across this scene. Yeah, and usually it's a really important scene to the protagonist of the memoir, which is the author. I always, when I think about memoir, when I talk about a memoir, I always say the character, because it's never quite you. A memoir, you're telling it for a reason. There's a certain story that you need to tell. It's not going to be the story of your life. It's going to be a story about this aspect of this thing. It's going to be, your life is like, it's going to be about 3% of your life is what a memoir is going to be like. So it's all a matter of what you're choosing to look at. It's usually the most traumatic thing, part of your life that you keep returning to, because it's like, how do I get my head around this? And so you're going to get your head around some things that are extremely unpleasant, unless you dated Fred Astaire, and that's what it's about. But that's what it's about. So you can't duck it. My advice is to write it, absolutely write the truth. And then if you have to soften it later, you can soften it later. But first get it out there. You can't both write and hold yourself back at the same time. You won't get anything. Better just to write it as if nobody is going to see it, or just like 3 people are going to see it who are not involved. And then you can, if you need to erase certain lines, you can, you have more control over it. What else can I tell you? Yeah. Well, disguising the character, you can do that in fiction. But memoir is not about hiding things. Memoir is about telling the truth. So, I don't know. I would always write fiction because, I'm not that. I like to disguise things. I like to take 3 different people and make a character out of them, rather than, bluntly, describing what. Also, it's just, that's my taste. I'm a fiction writer. I'm a fabulist. But memoir is extremely brave. It's a brave act. I applaud you for giving that a try. What else can I say about character? Oh, I'm not a writer. Well, then memoir is the right place to be, because a good memoir doesn't have to be written in quite the same way that fiction really has to be written. A memoir just is the story itself that wants to be told. It is scary. Memoir is totally scary. And people will be pissed at you, especially if they were not nice to you and you write it down. And sometimes people are very funny about privacy. My family is like that, very private. And if I wrote a memoir, people would be in my family, would have been. And I would have gotten telling from my point of view. So I don't know. Yeah, memoir is a whole different category. You have a co-writer, that's good. Fiction, you don't get to have a co-writer. I guess people do, but often they don't. Here's one. Hi. Always touch on it late to the party. In fiction, any tips on raising the stakes? Oh, yeah. Okay. Raising the stakes. What that means is when you have a story where it's about these 2 girls and growing up, and each goes their own way, and maybe people in your writing group will say, well, what's at stake? What are, how do you get the stakes high enough that there's conflict, and people wonder what's going to happen. They care. They're going to tune in to make sure they don't miss what's happening. And what's important is not the big, especially in a short story, it doesn't have to be a big conflict. It just has to be big to the character. So it could be, will my cake turn out or not? And there are writers skillful enough that they could make tension, they could really make those stakes very high as to whether or not my cake turned out. Virginia Woolf could do it and show because maybe the character's world is so microscopic that every tiny thing that happens, their whole mental health hinges on each tiny thing. So upping the stakes means that the character can't back out, that they need to do this. They care very much what happens. And you'll feel if you're losing that tension on the line, you're going to lose the fish, you're going to lose the reader. So the stakes don't have to be grave in particular. It doesn't have to be life and death. it's just something that is extremely important to the character. The grandmother gives them an engraved bracelet to a 12-year-old, and the 12-year-old loses the bracelet. And it was incredibly important. Maybe the grandmother's dead now. And maybe, the grandmother's very demanding. And it's like, where is the bracelet? What's going to happen? It's how scared is the character of being found out. So the stakes means how important to the character is it, not how big the thing is in itself. Okay, cool. Karen's saying that Memoir is a Holocaust survival story. Yeah, stakes are not a problem in a story like that. Memoir is tell the truth, and then you can always cut back. Much easier than trying to. So anyway, I'm close to out of battery power as well. Oh, this phone is just going to kill me today. So let's see. Last questions before I lose my power. Let me plug it in and see if I can get. Oh, you're going to have a tour of my house as as I'm looking for power. Oh God! All right, let's see if this works. All right, there we are. Well, we're plugged in. We'll see if that works at all. Yeah, so now I'm back in my office, but I'm not on my Wi-Fi. Oh, my cat has come to say hello. Oh, man. So any last, yeah, everything is so 2020. Thank goodness we're almost done with it. But we should never say that, because who knows what comes next. Who knows what comes next. So anyway, wish you all really good writing. Hope it all goes well. And do I agree that the first 10 pages are so important? Yes, the first 10 pages are super important. That they really need to sing, but the whole thing needs to sing. So get those first 10 pages in really good shape, and then make everything else as good as the first 10 pages. Yeah, the first 10 are important because, everybody's picked up a book and started reading and going, no. They're not going to wait till page 80 when it's revealed that Clifton is, really Ginevra. You're not going to get that far. My first 10 are 14. Bad? No, you want the first 10 to be, or first 14, the first 20, the first 50, and then the whole thing should be as good as every other part. I've certainly read books where the opening was fabulous, and then all that language just disappeared. It's like, oh, this was just sewn on to make the thing look good, but the writing really just wasn't there. So, use that. Definitely get the first 10, first 14, first 20, and then make sure you keep the tone, the diction, the care with the sentences. And if you're interested in exploring sentences, I've got my sentence class coming up January 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. We're just going to do nothing but look at sentences and play with them. And, if you want your whole book to be as good as your first 10, and you want your first 10 to really sing, it's all about the writing, not just the story. So if there's nothing else I need to address, thank you for joining us throughout 2020. This has been such a wonderful thing to have something every week that I need to show up for. So it's really good. And wish you good writing. Okay. Hi, June. All right. Happy New Year. Okay, bye.